Yeah. Record. Okay, thanks. Thanks very much, Michael Bagraim, for joining us today. I know you're very pressed for time. For those of you who don't know, Michael Bagraim is a member of Parliament, and I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. You'll probably do a much better job than I could. So, really, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for speaking to me. I really appreciate it. I'm honoured. I am a member of Parliament. I'm the Labour spokesperson for the Democratic Alliance, which is the opposition. I also work as an attorney in Bagraim's attorneys. So I have a long history in our labour law. I started my firm 36 years ago, believe it or not. So I think I am reasonably qualified to speak about the labour situation, and even in a black swan of this nature. I've never seen anything like it, of course. Hopefully I'll never see anything like this again. But I am well versed in our history of our labour law, and I'm well versed in the practice to be able to at least comment on the devastation. That's the one thing. And then to make a few comments on how we get out of the devastation.
Yeah.
And then finally, I do have a little bit of influence, not much, a smidgen of influence with the minister, who at the moment is not very happy with me and feels that I've spoken out of turn. But I take my job as an opposition member of Parliament very seriously, that we still have a constitution, we still have laws, and in effect, we need to have some sort of oversight of government, which seems to be lacking very sorely at the moment. Government is not taking kindly to any oversight at all. In South Africa, I'm aware that in many other countries, they're also behaving like this. But we here, we need to ensure that we have at least a little bit of freedom to be able to criticize, to be able to advise, and then to be able to plot the way forward for ourselves. And our neighbours. We need to ensure that. So thank you for inviting me. It's a topic very close to my heart.
Thanks for your time, and thanks for the great introduction. So Michael, if you don't mind, I heard I was fortunate enough to hear you the other night on another talk event, and you mentioned some really terrifying stats. You mentioned there were different members in Parliament. You mentioned different stats about the expected unemployment or new retrenchment or new unemployed people in the market. I mean, we really got somewhere, we've got huge percentage, 25 upwards percentage of the population is unemployed, of the working population is unemployed. They're talking about stats between 1 to 2 million, and you mentioned stats between 3 and 4 million. I mean, that's another 20% of the labor force. So it will bring us up to more than 50% of the labor force will be unemployed. Now, for me, the key thing is, yes, there's short-term measures in place, there's UIF relief, there's certain short-term measures, but it's really about the medium and longer-term measures that are really troubling me. I've been, this is just a subject close to my heart, I've been party to, fortunately or unfortunately, 4 retrenchments during my career, 2 as an employee, and 2 on the side of management. And for me, what was sorely missing, what is a big gap in that, I've read through the procedures of retrenchment and restructuring. For me, what was sorely missing is the, financial education of the people who are going through this type of process. It's almost analogous to when you have a baby. Thank God I've got 3 beautiful sons. But you go through the pregnancy stage where you get a lot of guidance by the midwives and you get guidance by different people. But then the baby's born. Sorry, we've lost your signal there a second.
No, we haven't lost the signal. Someone was phoning in. Sorry.
So the baby's
born. It's going to happen from
born.
time to time. I apologize.
The baby's born, and then you go home, and then what? Fortunately, I was party to be also running many shopping centers in the past. I ran 25 shopping centers. And the biggest failure was guys who were retrenched, who came out of corporate jobs, and then,
Sorry about that.
Sorry,
it's switch off the other phone as well.
It's a long-winded.
We're getting lots of interruptions. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. It's a long-winded. It's a long-winded question, but for me, the key is in the procedure. There's missing the the financial education for people. So yes, a lot of these people who will be found unemployed are not financially astute. They might get a package, they may get something, and they might squander it in 6 months, 3 months, a year, 2 years, they might squander it. What in the procedures or should be changed to actually help people, and some people may be able to get financial advice, some may not access it. How can we help those people to make the wise decisions that they will not, that they can actually get reintegrated into the workplace? Sorry,
Thank you. Yeah. Can I go backwards a little bit?
Yeah.
To right at the beginning of your question, when we were talking about statistics, because that's something very close to all of our hearts. Before we went into this COVID-19 disaster, we know that South Africa was approximately 10.5 million people unemployed. People who were looking for jobs, people who had given up looking for jobs. They call it the expanded definition. It was about 10.5 million people.
Yeah.
Government's assessment was 29% of the workforce could work, but it couldn't find any employment. So that's where we were. The World Bank tells us that was the worst in the world. Sure. Believe it or not. So we are right at the bottom in terms of, before we get into the COVID, we were right at the bottom, which was a real issue for me and was an issue I'd taken up with the Ministry of Labour, and I've been fighting that for 6 years now. Sure. We've been trying to change the legislation to make it conducive to job creation, and also trying to conducive to make it that people would stay in their jobs as opposed to being retrenched and dismissed. So that's where we were. We then move into COVID, and the Minister of Employment and Labour, bless him, had advice from economists like yourself to say that they'd looked into it and we're going to lose another 1 to 2 million jobs. And that was reported to the Portfolio Committee in Parliament, that we're going to lose another 1 to 2 million jobs. And quite frankly, that was a lot higher than I thought. Being a practicing labour lawyer, and I was looking at the situation and speaking to people in the know, but the minister had advice from his economists as 1 to 2 million. I was shocked. I challenged him on it, and he said he's merely repeating the advice that he's received from the government economists. Yeah. Working on that, I thought that was a disaster, and we got to start preparing for that disaster, because not only will the UIF not cope, Workmen's Compensation won't cope, which is two wings of the Department of Employment and Labour, but the third wing, the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration, also won't cope, because people are going to challenge the retrenchments, and they won't cope either. So all three arms of the Department of Labour would not be able to cope. However, last week, Treasury, and just before you and I were part of another Zoom conference, Treasury announced that it will be 3 to 7 million people will be retrenched. Sure. I then said Treasury is a conservative body, so let's take the via media, between 3 and 7 is fine. So let's presume, and Treasury are in the know. They're collating information all the time. They're working with actuaries. I have spoken to people at Treasury. They feel that it will be 3 to 7 million. The Minister of Labour was out, and their information that they're receiving, which is in fact a lot closer to the truth, because they're also speaking about a month after lockdown. The minister was speaking just before lockdown. They're saying 3 to 7 million. Let's, you and I, be conservative about the conservative body and say it'll be 5 million. Sure. If it's 5 million, we will then have over 15 million unemployed in South Africa. Now, if you consider that there are less than 30 million people in the workforce, that's over 50% of our workforce will be unemployed. We give you one other statistics, and the statistics normally bore everyone, in particular me, but one other statistic that Treasury tells me is that for every person working in South Africa, they are looking after 4 people. In other words, 4 other people rely on them. So for every job that's lost, it means 5 people are going to go into the starvation queue. Sure. Now, if you're looking at 5 people going into the starvation queue, that's 15 million times 5. Now, I don't know how that's going to work, because we've only got 59 million people in South Africa. Yeah. So you the mathematician, you the accountant, you tell me how it's going to work, because who's going to pay tax? It looks like it's just you, because I'm not sure if I'm earning anything at this point. So other than being flippant about it, this is a disaster of note. It's not about to happen or it might happen. It is happening right now. As a labor lawyer, this morning, I retrenched 175 people. And I'm with one of the smallest labor law firms in the country. And I'm retrenching daily, and we're doing about approximately 100 a day if we calculate on a 5-day week. That's our little firm with 4 attorneys in it. Now, yes, I know we concentrate on the labor law, and yes, I know we're keeping our figures, we're trying to calculate what's going on. We're a drop in the ocean. So what I'm saying to you is that retrenchment is going to be the order of the day. It's already started, and when I say is going to be, I think it's going to ratchet up quite a lot. We've had to turn away a lot of work. We just can't help. We've got traditional clients of ours. We have about 700 small businesses on our books that we help regularly. A lot of them we have said, look, we just can't help you. Can we recommend some other lawyer for you? Or can we maybe give you some advice at a later stage?
Sure.
What I'm trying to say to you is your question about retrenchment is a very serious one. Now, the department has one scheme, never mind the UIF and workman's compensation, the traditional schemes. It's called the training layoff scheme, which is probably what you're thinking of. You might not have heard the term training layoff scheme, but it is a scheme where they try and take people who are about to be retrenched and they try and re-engineer a firm and retrain the people. And they're putting some money into it. At the moment, it's not a fortune. They put, I don't know, I think it's 40, 50 million rand into it. But I think they should ratchet up that. So if we can have people, we can start training them on more relevant skills. Because unlike me, most of the kids that are coming up now out of the system and matriculants are learning computers really well.
Yeah.
I've only got 2 left thumbs and half a brain, and I'm not good with that. But the kids are. I mean, when I wanted to sort out my Zoom capacity on my phone, I asked a grandchild to put it on for me, which he downloaded Zoom for me, and he showed me how it would work and where I must press and do all these sort of things. And I kept asking him to show me again, and then he said, "Look, don't be so doff." So what I'm saying to you is our workforce we have a good thing in South Africa. Our workforce is young.
Yeah.
Our workforce is trainable.
Yeah. And
yes, we do need to train. In terms of finances, this is a real problem. Because when I retrench, I actually engage with a lot of individuals on a daily basis, and they get a package. Let me explain what they get. They first get their notice pay.
Yeah.
And normally they give them a month, so they don't have to pay a month's notice pay, or 2 months, depends on the contract. Then they give them the severance pay, which is 1 week per year of service or more.
Yeah.
In some cases, 2 weeks or 3 weeks. That comes tax-free. Then they give them any sort of outstanding leave that is owing. Now, most of the workforce today in South Africa are using up all their leave because they've had to stay at home during COVID, and the employers have said, take your leave and exhaust your leave. But there are those with leave still available.
Yeah.
Then what they're getting is they're getting access to their pension, provident, or whatever fund. And then finally, the employer tops it up and says, if you sign an agreement with me, I'll give you X amount extra, another 10,000 rand or 20,000 rand. So they've got this bundle of money that gets then thrust on them. And the first reaction is, let's use all that money to pay up debt, because I've got a debt collector on my back or whatever. What people don't realize is that they must structure it properly. They must use it properly, and that they should look at, I mean, for instance, if I owe 20,000 rand because I bought a bed set, a bed and the sheets and all that from a retailer, every month I've been paying a 3 rand extra on what I'm paying back, which is actually insurance against retrenchment.
Yeah. And
so yesterday, when I was speaking to people, of the 6 people I was speaking to, because only 6 people got hold of me, of the large group I offered to speak to them. Each one I said, go, what do you owe? Who do you owe to? And how are we going to structure that? Now, I'm not a financial advisor by any stretch of the imagination, But they all said they owed money to furniture, clothing, blah, blah, blah. And all of them, I said, go and read what you're paying.
Yeah.
They all came back to me and they said they've got insurance for retrenchment. They didn't know. It's just a rand or 2 or 3. In fact, on one it was 3 rand a month extra. And I said, no, I can wipe out your whole debt there.
Yeah.
At the same time, go and claim that. Go to the bank and tell them they will put it all on hold. So there has to be someone out there, and it should be preferably the employer.
Yeah.
But people like you in the accounting profession and the advisory.
Well, I'm actually a financial advisor, so yeah, that's why.
Financial advisor, yeah, they should be actually speaking to people on a regular basis saying, let's structure this properly. I'll tell you one other disaster that is happening out there.
Yeah.
We got a firm that we're speaking to today. They've got to shrink their workforce by 20%. So we sent out a letter this morning. It's not a large staff. There's only, I think there's 60 of them. We sent out a letter this morning saying we need to get rid of about 15 to 20 people. So what we're offering is voluntary retrenchment. In other words, come forward. We're offering extra if you get retrenched and you take it voluntary. We're offering, instead of 1 week per year of service, we're offering 2 weeks if you take it as a voluntary, and we can sign you off. Well, we wanted 15 to 20 people. I had almost 40 people apply. So we had to then go and say, no, you can't go. And why did they all apply? Because they've all got debt and they all want to clear that debt. And I tried to explain to a woman that she shouldn't go. Even though she has debt, if she pays off her debt, then what's she going to do next month and the month thereafter? You can't get jobs now.
Yeah.
It's not, and she hasn't got a special skill. She's a seamstress.
Yeah.
She hasn't got a special skill. There's no jobs out there. So yes, she's got the relief in that she's paid the loan shark, because she's actually taken money from a loan shark, which is probably the most dangerous thing to do, because they're now doubling what she owes them. And I said, rather speak to the employer, be level with him. He doesn't want to lose you. Level with him. Let him try and pay the loan shark, and then you take it off your salary as we go forward. But you shouldn't be going. You've been there for 25 years. It's silly to leave now. And it's also the worst time in history to take all your money out of your pension fund.
Yeah.
Well, you can tell me that, but I've had a look at mine. It's devastated.
It's the worst time.
I'm on a government pension fund. So you can imagine what it looks like. It's the worst time. Everyone's saying, don't touch that.
Yeah.
And if you've got stocks and shares, don't sell them, because they are feeling pretty thin at the moment. They've all been put on diet.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying to you is you hit the nail on the head there. There is one other thing about retrenchment, which is better than rather resigning or signing some agreement that says that you left voluntarily. And that is, if you get retrenched, you have access to the UIF, the Unemployment Insurance Fund, not the one that we're talking about with the COVID-19,
yeah.
The actual true UIF, which will then pay you anything up to, I think it's about 7,000 Rand per month for 9 months, as opposed to the 3 months for that, which is also money, and it doesn't get taxed. It comes straight to you. So it's actually worth looking at all of this or as a roundup figure and see where we stand. But if you're being asked to volunteer to retrench, don't do it unless you find another job. Yeah. Sorry, a long answer to a long question.
So really the point is, I mean, yes, 7,000 Rand is a decent amount, but if you're earning 50, 60,000 Rand a month, you've got 2 kids in schools, you've got 2 cars, I mean, that's not going to see you through very much. So really my question is, as I'm just going back a little bit, part of these procedures of retrenchment shouldn't be mandatory. I mean, for them to come to you for counseling, for financial advice, that's wrong. It shouldn't be mandatory that they need to, the company should employ or contact someone to give them proper advice on what to do with their money. Because it's not just an ad hoc thing, it's a real life, major decisions they're making in their life, which can impact them the rest of their life, and they can never recover from it.
Yeah, in fact, I know a lot of companies that do that, and it's to do not so for the blue-collar workers who are not getting enormous money and don't have the same heavy expenses, but certainly for your white-collar, for your middle management, for the senior management. Look, this COVID doesn't discriminate against anyone.
No.
What's happening, we're seeing now as opposed to previous retrenchments. We went through a mass retrenchment in South Africa in 2008.
Yeah.
I don't know if you recall
Yeah.
that piece of our history. It was a massive, that time I, in fact, had to, with my staff here, we had to work through the night.
That was one of my experiences, yeah.
Yeah, what we had to do then at that stage, we retrenched all the blue-collar workers. It was tragic, it was sad, but people who are living in very meager circumstances somehow managed to pull their way through. They got some money, they paid their loan sharks off, and they managed to then find another job within a month or two, and we started going again. This is very different. This is more devastating, and you're quite right. Because if you've got someone in middle management who's earning 30 or 40,000 Rand a month, or even 50 or more, and they get retrenched, their expenses are running at what their salary is.
Yeah.
And so now, and you're normally the only breadwinner in the house.
Yeah.
So now you actually need someone to advise you, and employers are not capable of advising. It doesn't matter how clever I think I am. If I retrench people, I'm not capable of advising. Like I've just told you now, I've know a few little things to advise blue-collar workers. I can't advise a white-collar worker or a middle management employee or a senior management employee. And those are the people that are going to affect now. It's all the people in clerical jobs, in middle management and senior management that are all going. They're the biggest expense to the company they're going, and you need someone to sit down with each individual and say, how are we going to structure this? How are we going to make it tax effective? Which debts do we pay off now? Which do we, for time in which to pay it off over a longer period of time? And how are we going to structure all that? So I know that if I got retrenched tomorrow, I'd have to go and see someone, and I'd have to ask that person, how can I, as an individual, try and structure myself? How can I actually do it?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I've got no expertise in that area, and I wouldn't know where to turn first, I must tell you.
Yeah,
I've got an array of debt. I've got an array of investments, and I wouldn't know how to restructure. I'd just throw my hands up and say, listen, I'm at full despair anyway.
Yeah.
I'm losing my job. I have to now go and face the family, explain it, and I've got no idea what I must do about my finances.
And there's even a more bitter twist in the tale, because I picked this up in a lot of people that I've been dealt with in the past. There's for your risk benefits. So when you in the company, you often got risk benefits, life insurance, disability cover, income protection. Now you can actually convert that to a standalone policy. You can take it to a standalone policy without any medical underwriting. So you don't have to go and say, if let's say you're 55, you're not in the best shape, the insurance companies are compelled to continue that life cover with no loadings, with no exclusions, as is. But the catch is you've got normally a 30 to 60-day window to actually convert that properly. So again, people might be losing benefits that they can never, ever get again in their life. And people are just completely unaware of it. I mean, that's probably the best insurance insurance industry's best kept secret. That, they have to take on these risks without medical checkups, without loading. And that's another part of the education that's very important. So just to add,
you see, I didn't even know about that. So you just told me something new.
Yeah, I mean, I just recently did someone who was 65, we converted it and it worked out really well. Thanks for that, Michael. And just moving on from that subject, I know we can talk all day about this, but I know you've got limited time. Just with regards to, I know I also overheard you in that other podcast, just with regards to civil rights. Now, I mean, we in a democracy, I don't know the civil law. I'm being told now I can only exercise between 6 and 9. Although it's dark between 6 and 7. If I'm living in area like Sea Point, there's thousands of people on the promenade. I mean, what's next? Will we allow to do X? I understand there's safety and concerns, and they need to put a blanket policy for everyone. So it's very difficult to say X group can do X and a Y group can do that. But how do you see this long term also impacting our civil rights, our civil liberties in a democracy at the end of the day?
Well, I think it's been, to a large degree, eroded over these past 6 weeks. I'm feeling very exposed, I must tell you, and I've made that absolutely clear to my portfolio committee in the Parliament itself. It was a strange thing for me to do, but I phoned a lot of my colleagues in the ANC to find out if they had the same feeling that I had, first of all, about the civil liberties being eroded, but secondly, do they feel that they've been consulted in any way as lawmakers about a lot of these regulations, a lot of the laws that are being debated now, and a lot of the implementation of because the implementation of the regulations have been bastardized to a large degree. And I've had a discussion now with a good dozen ANC backbenchers, and every single one, to the person, has said that no one consulted them. They had no idea. The first time they heard about it was when the minister advised what the regulations would be on X, Y, or Z. We keep hearing every night new regulations coming through. They're streaming into my computer all the time. I don't know who's drafting it. I don't know who's thinking it through. Yeah. I've got no idea as to anyone's actually thought about the implementation of it and also the consequences. We got no idea at all. So civil liberty, we could be living in a communist state for all that matter. It makes no difference because civil liberty seems to have been washed aside. I'm sitting in Parliament. I know that normally when a law is made or a regulation is made, we consult, we debate, and we think of the consequences and we think of the unintended consequences of all this. No one seems to have thought this through. I mean, for instance, just as an example, I wanted to go for a walk 2 days ago on Table Mountain Road, and I thought, okay, 6 to 9, well, that's a bit silly, but you know, that's what they want, that's what I'm going to do. So I go for a walk up to Table Mountain Road, and I'm having a lovely walk. I can see no one in front of me for about 1 kilometer, and I can see no one behind me for about 1 kilometer, and I come across a police van. Now, I'm the only one and a police van, the 2 policemen in it. And they say, you've got to turn back. We're not allowed to walk on Table Mountain Road. And I said, why not? They said, well, you'll catch the virus. I said, well, there's no one here. I'm sure I won't catch it from the trees. I've never read that. And, well, maybe I'll catch it from you because both of you aren't wearing masks. But I won't stand too close to your van. So they said, don't you get silly with us. We're going to arrest you. You've got to not walk on this road. You can't walk on this road. So I said, why? And they said, you're not allowed to ask us any questions. We've been told you can't walk on this road.
Sure.
As it turns out, they think it is a Parks Board road, and I think it's
public road
to the city. But it's a different debate. Then I had a debate. I said, all right, then what I'll do is I'll turn around and walk back to my house. They said, no, but you can't walk on the road. So I said, well, I haven't got a personal helicopter. I'm walking. Can you see that I'm actually walking? I said, yes. I said, can you see I don't have a bicycle? I said, yes. I said, now I've got to walk back to my house. They said, well, not on this road. I said, well, can I walk through the forest? They said, no, that you definitely can't because you can't walk in the parks. So I said, okay, so now maybe you can advise me how I can get back. Am I going to come in the back of your van and get a lift back to my house? They said, no, we stationed here. So we had this debate for about 10 minutes. Now, this is the idiocy of the whole thing. I feel sorry for the policemen because they're not allowed to have me walk there, but they should have stopped me right at the beginning instead of halfway through the walk. Anyway, the reality is, absolute reality is, a lot of this has become absolutely silly. So we're seeing videos of people getting arrested on surfboards and a policeman who can't keep up with the runner on the beach. All this is just silly. I mean, you've got one person on a beach of about 10 kilometers and you've got a policeman chasing him because he might give someone the virus. But you've got Sea Point Beachfront, where I've seen pictures of it, where you literally got thousands of people jam-packed into 2 or 3 hours.
Well, you got queues outside shopping centres. I mean, I was in.
Well, that's
Elsie's
exactly
River.
it.
You got queues.
I'm too scared to go.
I saw two. I mean, I was in Elsie's River. I think on last week, I saw 2,000 people standing outside a shopping centre, waiting to get in the gate, next to each other, right, back to back, without masks. But there weren't any policemen around.
Well, even government created queues, SASSA queues, for your pension.
Yeah.
People are packed close behind each other. No one's wearing a mask.
So how
What
do
I'm
we
trying
get?
to say to you is civil liberties have been eroded very quickly,
So,
with everyone saying, all right, we support our president,
but
and he's saying good things. The devil's in the detail.
so how
And
do
the
we get it
detail
back?
is,
The question is, how do
sorry?
we get the civil liberties back? How do we actually how are we going to get them back?
Well, it's simple. First of all, we need to get Parliament back up and running. It doesn't have to be physically. And there was a call put out by John Steenhuisen with a threat of possible litigation that if we don't reconvene the portfolio committees who have an oversight over each member of Parliament, of each member of the ministry, if we don't have that back within 2 days, we're going to go to court. So they suddenly reinstated that, which is good. From that, the ministers then have to appear at the portfolio meetings through a Zoom conference, and they're now subject to cross-examination, to report back, and to recriminations as to what has happened over the past 6 weeks. And so I took that opportunity and liberty of cross-examining our Minister of Employment and Labour as to the devastation of the economy because of the lockdown effect on the businesses. And the minister has accused me of bad-mouthing him. He's accused me of telling lies. And the chairperson of our Portfolio Committee of Labour is now trying to shut me up by muting me at these meetings. But at least now I have the opportunity of at least saying I don't agree and at least feeding in what I feel that needs to be said. And of course, I'm now feeding that back to the public. So there's got to be some oversight. Otherwise, you have power, absolute power corrupts, absolutely.
Yeah, correct.
And
correct.
the problem that we've all got in this country is that a lot of us are actually good citizens. If the president says jump, we all ask how high. However, when the president says jump and we say, hold on a minute, we have jumped and it doesn't look so good because there's a big cliff on the other side, we need to start thinking and saying no. And civil society is very powerful in South Africa. Very, very powerful.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I have faith in the people.
Okay, no, thanks for that. Thanks for the insight. Just one more question, and I'm sure you got to run soon. I'm looking at the time. We almost, we're half an hour. Just technical question. I know the UIF tours. I know the tours is a short term for COVID specific, and the UIF is a long term, more retrenchment type benefit. For people who've got domestic chars at home, I mean, I'm guilty, unfortunately. We tried to register it a while ago and we never managed to, I don't know what happened, but it just never happened. How does someone make sure that their child domestic's registered so that they can also benefit? Because I don't know how long they're not going to, I think it's only level 2 that they can actually come back to work. So some people will continue paying them while they're not working. Some people won't. And that's another, again, those ladies, I mean, when I think of inspiration, when I'm driving to work in my fancy car and I see the lady at 5:30 in the morning, she's probably got up at 4:30 to get on the taxi to come to the suburbs to work a full day and then go home so she can feed her 3-4 children and her extended family. Now, those people are the real people who are being impacted now. And they need to get access to money. And if the people aren't paying them, how do we make sure that those people are registered for UIF and are going to be paid?
Okay, well, look, I mean, it's a simple exercise that. First of all, there's a big benefit in this COVID-19. There's a silver lining to it. And the silver lining is, first and foremost, a lot of the employers are phoning me and saying, well, we've had so-and-so working with us. Excuse me, that's not COVID.
He's gone now.
I'm speaking too much. They say they've had so-and-so working for them as a gardener or a domestic worker or a mine childcarer for the last 20 years, and we've never registered him or her. I've said, now is the time. Now that your mind is focused on it, go and register. Go back a few years and say, we've had them there for a few years. It's only 2% of their salary, which is not an enormous amount, and go and do it right now. Now, up until now, the department has been a little bit shirty about it, and they're saying, well, you might have to pay interest and penalties and all sorts of other things. Now they're just taking it. They're saying, go ahead and register. We know that there's a disaster around the corner. It's here. Let's register. So there's a silver lining so that everyone gets recognized as an employee. And I think my piece of recommendation is please go ahead and do that, because the domestic needs to be recognized. And I'll tell you, there's a bigger benefit than just the UIF. And the other benefit is, if while she's at work, and I disagree with you about the only level 2, because people can come back now under certain circumstances. We'll talk about that just now. But if she is on a step ladder, domestic worker, and on the step ladder she's cleaning the windows from the outside, and while she's cleaning the windows, she hears a dog bark, and she turns around to have a look at what is barking, and she slips off the step ladder and breaks both her legs. Horror story. You will then help her, obviously, to a hospital, a provincial hospital, because she doesn't have medical aid, and you can't pay 100,000 Rand for this. And at the provincial hospital, she is going to be helped probably in 2 or 3 days' time. She's going to be sitting in a queue in the passage for about a day. And in 2 or 3 days' time, they'll say, listen, this is going to need an operation, and we can schedule this only for a month's time. And in the meantime, unfortunately, we don't have a bed for you, and you've got a broken leg. And you know the normal story. If, however, she was registered, by June, we will probably have a ruling from our constitutional court this year, by June this year, that every single domestic is entitled to be complied with and properly registered. UIF is entitled to workman's compensation. If they're entitled to workman's compensation, they then can go to a private hospital.
Oh, wow.
And so it's the cheapest health insurance in the world. And it doesn't cost the employer anything. It only costs for the UIF. So you can well imagine what a benefit that is to every single domestic. I know, because I had a domestic many years ago that did break her leg, and it cost me an absolute fortune, because I wasn't going to go through the exercise of going to some sort of provincial hospital. What I did afterwards was something illegal, and I don't mind saying it. I went and registered with my business so that she could at least have access to workman's compensation. The other benefit is, for the employer, not only are you getting a very good insurance, but the employer has, in terms of workman's compensation, an indemnity. So if the domestic says, you supplied me with a faulty ladder, it's your fault that I fell off, not the dog that I looked at. It's your fault. It was a faulty ladder. The ladder was badly built, and one of the rungs has fallen off, and I'm now suing you for 100,000 Rand. You can say, well, I have indemnity from government because they've indemnified me through workman's compensation. So it's a fantastic indemnity as well. So not only is it a great medical aid, but it's an insurance indemnity.
Sold. You sold.
Win-win.
Win-win. And how do you register?
Your domestic.
Just on, I'm doing it now after this meeting. You register online. You just go online and register it.
Online. That's the other nice thing now about the COVID. There's another silver lining. You don't have to go into the office and queue for hours on end with little forms. And then they say you're in the wrong queue, go to that queue. Or you haven't brought this form with you. It's all online. Yes, it's a nightmare going online because there's so many people trying to do it, but persevere and you'll get there.
Do it at 1 o'clock in the morning and then no one's online.
Yeah, that's it. There's still a queue at 1 o'clock, but do it anyway.
I mean, Michael, thanks very much. We could carry on for hours, but at the end of that silver lining, I think we'll call it a day, and then hopefully we can catch up again soon. I really appreciate your insights, your time, and really your experience really helps everyone, and I'm sure everyone will benefit from this. And
I'd love to. Thank you. We'll talk again. It's been a delight, and please send me the link as well.
I will, definitely. Thanks very much. You too.
Thanks.